The last echoes of her people's dimensional portals had faded 3 hours ago, leaving Lyra Moon's heart alone in the vast silence of the celestial temple. She knelt before the altar of eternity, its crystalline surface spider-webbed with fractures that pulsed with dying light. Each crack represented another world that would fall to darkness if the temple's power failed completely. Outside, the thunder of Krelian war machines grew steadily closer, their alien battle cries carrying promises of destruction that made the ancient starstone walls shudder with sympathetic vibrations. Lyra's elongated ears, normally upright with alertness, drooped with exhaustion as she struggled to maintain the protective barriers that were all that stood between the sacred grounds and annihilation. Her silver hair, once bright as captured moonlight, had dimmed to pewter gray as her life force slowly ebbed into the temple's failing defenses. The ceremonial robes of her order hung loose on her diminished frame. 3 days without food or rest while channeling cosmic energies had taken their toll. But she would not abandon her post. She could not. Sacred forces of light and wisdom, she whispered, her violet eyes reflecting the altar's fading luminescence, if this is to be the end, let it be swift. Let the temple's destruction be clean, so that our enemies gain nothing from our defeat. The irony wasn't lost on her that she prayed for the destruction of everything she'd spent her life protecting. But better the temple fall than serve the Krelians' dark purposes. They sought not conquest but corruption, to twist the sacred energies that held reality together, to feed them to the ancient hunger that dwelled in the spaces between stars. A massive explosion rocked the outer walls, sending cascades of luminescent dust from the ceiling. The first barrier had fallen. Lyra felt the temple's pain as though it were her own, the living starstone architecture crying out in harmonic frequencies that only a high priestess could hear. The building itself was dying, its consciousness slowly fading as the protective matrix collapsed. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the walls that had been her home for 30 years. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry there's no one left to." Another explosion, closer this time. The second barrier wouldn't hold much longer. Through the temple's vast windows, she could see the crimson glow of Krelian plasma weapons painting the sacred gardens in hellish light. Ancient trees that had grown for millennia withered and died under the alien fire, their death songs joining the temple's lament in a chorus of endings. Lyra closed her eyes and began the final benediction, the ritual that would release the temple's remaining power in one last, cleansing burst. Better to deny the enemy their prize than to let them corrupt what had taken eons to build. Her voice rose in the ancient language, each syllable carefully pronounced despite her trembling lips. By star and stone, by light and darkness balanced, by the eternal dance of creation and entropy. The words caught in her throat as the temple suddenly blazed with renewed energy. The walls pulsed with golden light that had nothing to do with her faltering power. Something was coming, not from outside, but from deeper within the temple's mysterious architecture. The ancient corridors that led to chambers even she had never explored were awakening, responding to a presence that made the very air sing with possibility. Footsteps echoed through the sacred halls, not the heavy tread of Krelian warriors, but something else entirely. Human footsteps, confident and determined, accompanied by the soft scrape of metal against stone. Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs as hope warred with disbelief. There were no humans on Zephyros. The nearest human world was 17 light-years away, and no ship could have reached them through the Krelian blockade. Yet the footsteps grew closer, and with them came a warmth that made the temple's living walls hum with anticipation. Ancient defense systems that had slumbered for millennia began stirring to life, responding to something in the approaching presence that resonated with their deepest programming. "Impossible," Lyra breathed, struggling to her feet as strength flowed back into her limbs. The temple itself was lending her power, drawing energy from whatever approached through its sacred corridors. The footsteps paused just outside the sanctuary doors, massive portals of carved starstone that depicted the creation of the universe in flowing, abstract patterns. For a moment, silence stretched like a held breath. Then, with thunderous force that shook dust from ancient hinges, the doors burst open. A figure stood silhouetted against the golden light of the corridor beyond, tall, broad-shouldered, and radiating the kind of controlled fury that made smart people step aside and wise people offer assistance. As her eyes adjusted, Lyra saw details that made her gasp. A human male, definitely, with dark hair and storm-gray eyes that surveyed the sanctuary with tactical precision. His clothes were travel-worn and battle-scarred, his boots dusty from long journeys across hostile terrain. But it was the sword in his hand that made her breath catch, not the crude plasma weapons favored by most species, but something far older and infinitely more dangerous. The blade hummed with energies that made the temple's walls sing in recognition, its metal forged from materials that existed only in legend. "Well," the stranger said, his voice carrying the kind of dry humor that suggested he'd seen too much of the universe to be impressed by mere impossibility, "this is either the worst vacation destination in the galaxy, or I'm exactly where I need to be." His eyes found hers across the vast sanctuary, and Lyra felt something shift in the fundamental structure of reality. The temple blazed with light so brilliant it could probably be seen from orbit, its power suddenly flowing not from her alone but from some deeper source that included this impossible human warrior who had appeared when all hope seemed lost. "Who are you?" she whispered, though part of her already knew the answer would change everything she thought she understood about fate, destiny, and the mysterious ways the universe arranged its most important meetings. Captain Marcus Stone stepped fully into the sanctuary, his boots clicking against starstone floors that pulsed with renewed energy at his approach. He swept his gaze across the vast chamber with the practiced eye of someone who'd learned to assess threats and assets in the same glance, a useful skill when your profession involved rescuing people from impossible situations. "Marcus Stone," he said, sheathing his sword with fluid grace. "Professional problem solver, amateur philosopher, and apparently your cosmic cavalry." He gestured toward the shattered altar with casual irreverence. "Though I have to say, when the ancient star maps mentioned sacred temple in desperate need, I was expecting more golden statues and fewer exploding walls." Lyra stared at him with the expression of someone whose prayers had been answered by a cosmic bureaucracy with a sense of humor. "You're human. How did you get past the Krelian blockade? How did you even know we needed help?" Marcus pulled a battered datapad from his jacket, its screen flickering with star charts that seemed to shift and change as she watched. "Funny story about that. 3 months ago, my sister Sarah was studying Etherian mysticism on the colony world Arcturus Prime. Brilliant woman, terrible taste in dangerous research projects." His expression darkened briefly. "The Krelians hit the colony without warning. Killed everyone, took their data, and left nothing but crater glass and regrets." The temple's walls pulsed with sympathetic energy, responding to the pain in his voice. Ancient comfort protocols activated, filling the air with harmonics that eased grief and promoted healing. Marcus raised an eyebrow at the phenomenon. "Interesting. Your building has better bedside manner than most doctors I've met." He tapped the datapad screen. "Before she died, Sarah managed to upload her research to a secure server. Took me weeks to crack her encryption, she always was paranoid about academic theft. But buried in her files were references to something called the Celestial Template, a cosmic linchpin that could turn the tide against the Krelian expansion." Lyra's violet eyes widened. "She found references to the template? But those texts are forbidden even to high priestesses. They're kept in the deep archives, accessible only to warriors of pure heart during times of cosmic crisis." Marcus finished with a grin that managed to be both charming and slightly infuriating. "Yeah, Sarah was thorough. Also mentioned something about elongated ears and silver hair being dead giveaways for temple guardians." He gave her an appraising look. "You fit the description perfectly, though the texts didn't mention the whole ethereally beautiful part. Sarah was better with cosmic theory than physical descriptions." Despite everything, the approaching army, the dying temple, the impossibility of the situation, Lyra felt her cheeks warm. "You came all this way based on your sister's research notes?" "Well, that and the fact that the Krelians have been systematically hunting down anything connected to Etherian mysticism. When someone tries that hard to destroy something, it usually means it's worth protecting." Marcus's expression turned serious. "I've been tracking their fleet for months, always 3 steps behind, watching them glass entire worlds to eliminate any trace of your people's knowledge. But when their main force converged on Zephyros, I knew this had to be their primary target. Another explosion rocked the temple, closer than before. Through the sanctuary windows, Lyra could see Krelian assault craft landing in the sacred gardens, disgorging troops in powered armor that gleamed with hostile intent. How long until they breached the inner sanctum? Marcus asked, his tactical mind already working. The third barrier will fall within minutes, Lyra said, trying to keep despair from her voice. After that, there's nothing between them and the temple's heart. Marcus nodded thoughtfully, then began unpacking equipment from his travel gear with the calm efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Good thing I brought party favors. He produced devices that hummed with energies Lyra couldn't identify, not Krelian technology, but something far more sophisticated. Human engineering with a few modifications I picked up from some very grateful clients. The Vorthan Collective makes excellent barrier generators, and the Nexus Syndicate has simply wonderful ideas about creative explosive deployment. You're going to fight an entire Krelian assault force? Lyra asked, caught between admiration and horror. Fight them? Oh no, that would be suicide. Marcus's grin turned predatory as he activated his devices. I'm going to annoy them into making tactical mistakes while you do whatever mystical temple guardian thing you need to do to turn this situation around. The starstone walls suddenly blazed with patterns of light that hadn't been seen for millennia, responding to the combination of Marcus's determination and Lyra's renewed hope. Ancient defense systems came online with musical chimes that sounded suspiciously like laughter, while hidden chambers throughout the temple began opening to reveal artifacts that predated recorded history. This is impossible, Lyra breathed, watching energies flow through circuits that had been dormant for ages beyond counting. The temple's deep systems only activate in the presence of a bonded pair, a guardian and their chosen warrior. But the bonding ritual takes years of preparation, decades of spiritual communion. Maybe the universe is in a hurry, Marcus suggested, checking his weapons with practiced ease. Or maybe your temple has excellent intuition about emergency exceptions to bureaucratic procedures. He looked directly at her, and Lyra felt something fundamental shift in the cosmic forces surrounding them. Sarah's notes mentioned that the template responds to emotional resonance, not just ritual compliance. Something about true purpose being more important than proper paperwork. The massive sanctuary doors groaned under the impact of Krelian plasma cannons. Sparks showered from the ancient hinges as the third barrier finally failed, leaving only the physical barriers between them and annihilation. Marcus hefted his sword, the blade now glowing with harmonics that matched the temple's energy signature, and took position between Lyra and the failing doors. So, mysterious temple lady, I'm guessing this is the part where you tell me about the secret weapon that can save the galaxy, and I pretend to understand the cosmic implications while shooting things. Despite everything, Lyra found herself smiling for the first time in days. The secret weapon is us, Marcus Stone. If we can survive long enough to reach the inner sanctum and activate the template together. Together? He raised an eyebrow. I like the sound of that. Though I should probably mention that I have a terrible track record with cosmic responsibility. Just ask the Andromedan Peace Council about the incident with their reality stabilizer. The doors exploded inward in a shower of starstone and fury, revealing the gleaming forms of Krelian shock troops advancing with murderous intent. But Marcus just smiled and raised his blade, while behind him, Lyra began chanting in the ancient language as power flowed through her like liquid starlight. Time to find out what happens when human stubbornness meets Etherian mysticism, Marcus said cheerfully, then charged into battle with the kind of reckless confidence that suggested he'd either done this before or was completely insane. Possibly both. The battle that followed would have been impossible to believe if anyone had survived to report it. Marcus moved through the advancing Krelian forces like a dancer performing a lethal ballet, his blade carving arcs of light that left their advanced armor smoking and useless. But it wasn't just his skill, the temple itself was fighting alongside him, corridors shifting to create choke points, walls generating energy shields that deflected plasma fire, and ancient defense turrets emerging from hidden alcoves to provide covering fire. Left corridor, 3 more incoming. Lyra called out, her consciousness now partly merged with the temple's awareness systems. She could see the entire complex as though from above, tracking enemy movements and guiding Marcus through tactical advantages that shouldn't have existed. Got them. Marcus replied, diving through a doorway that sealed itself behind him just as Krelian grenades exploded harmlessly against starstone barriers. A moment later, surprised alien shouts echoed from the left corridor, followed by the distinctive whine of his blade cutting through powered armor. "How are you doing that?" Lyra demanded as he reappeared, not even breathing hard despite having just fought his way through a squad of elite warriors. "You're moving through the temple like you've lived here for years." Marcus paused to wipe alien blood from his sword, grinning despite the circumstances. "You're building and I seem to have reached an understanding. It shows me where to go, I kill things that need killing, and we both pretend this level of supernatural cooperation is perfectly normal." He ducked as plasma fire sizzled overhead. "Though I have to admit, this is the first time I've had architectural support during a firefight. Usually buildings just get in my way." The temple's crystalline walls pulsed with what could only be described as amusement, while hidden speakers somehow conveyed the impression of cosmic laughter. Lyra found herself smiling despite their desperate situation. Marcus's irreverent attitude was infectious, and his unshakable confidence was doing more to restore her hope than any amount of mystical meditation. "The inner sanctum is 3 levels down," she said, weaving protective barriers around them as more Krelian forces poured through the breached entrance. "But the path is guarded by trials that test worthiness. Ancient challenges that—" "Let me guess," Marcus interrupted, vaulting over a fallen statue to land in a perfect combat stance. "Riddles about cosmic wisdom, tests of spiritual purity, and probably something involving moral philosophy." At her surprised nod, he grinned. Sarah's notes were very thorough. She also mentioned that the trials respond to genuine intent rather than academic knowledge. They fought their way deeper into the temple, Marcus's tactical brilliance combining with Lyra's mystical powers to create a defense that baffled their enemies. When Krelian forces tried to outflank them, hidden passages opened to provide escape routes. When plasma weapons threatened to breach their barriers, ancient energy dampeners activated to neutralize the attacks. The temple was no longer just a building, it had become a living weapon responding to their shared determination. "This is unprecedented," Lyra gasped as they paused in a chamber filled with floating crystal formations that hummed with protective energy. "The temple's deep consciousness has been dormant for millennia. Nothing should be able to wake it without." She stopped, staring at Marcus with dawning realization. He was examining one of the crystals with scientific curiosity, and where his fingers touched the surface, patterns of light flowed like captured lightning. "Without what?" he asked, noticing her expression. "Without the presence of a true guardian pair," she whispered. "Marcus, the temple thinks we're bonded. It's responding to us as though we've already completed the sacred rituals." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Is that good or bad?" "Because I have to tell you, mystical marriage wasn't on my agenda when I woke up this morning." Before Lyra could respond, the chamber filled with the thunder of approaching Krelian heavy assault units. Through the crystalline walls, they could see massive forms in powered exoskeletons advancing with weapons that could level city blocks. "The trials," Lyra said urgently. "We need to reach the inner sanctum before they bring up their siege breakers. The path is through the chamber of reflections, but the trials will kill us if we're not truly worthy," Marcus finished. "Right. Any helpful hints about how to prove worthiness to cosmic forces while running for our lives?" Lyra grabbed his hand, feeling the jolt of connection that ran between them like electrical current. "Trust me. Trust the temple. And whatever happens, don't let go." They ran through corridors that rearranged themselves as they passed, the temple's architecture flowing like liquid to guide them toward their destination. Behind them, Krelian forces struggled to follow as passages closed and opened in seemingly random patterns, though Lyra could sense the temple's intelligence directing every change. The Chamber of Reflections opened before them, a vast spherical room lined with mirrors that showed not physical appearances but the true nature of those who entered. In the mirror surfaces, Lyra saw herself as others perceived her, dedicated, wise, but lonely beyond measure, burdened by responsibilities that had kept her isolated from meaningful connection. But in the reflection beside hers, she saw Marcus as the temple perceived him, a warrior driven not by bloodlust but by an overwhelming need to protect, shaped by loss but not broken by it, carrying scars that had taught him compassion rather than bitterness. "Well," Marcus said, studying their reflections with characteristic irreverence, "I look better in cosmic truth vision than I expected. Though that scar from the Proxima incident is still pretty ugly." The mirrors began to shift, showing them not as they were but as they could become, standing together before the fully restored temple, their hands joined as cosmic energies flowed around them, guardians of something far greater than either could protect alone. "The temple is showing us the future," Lyra breathed. "Our future, if we're willing to accept it." Marcus squeezed her hand, his expression serious for once. "Lyra, I came here to honor my sister's sacrifice and stop the Krelians from destroying something beautiful. But this is bigger than revenge or duty." He met her eyes in the mirror. "If you'll have me as your partner in this cosmic guardianship thing, I promise to do my best not to break anything too important." The chamber filled with light as the temple registered their acceptance, ancient mechanisms activating to open the path to the inner sanctum. But even as they ran toward their destination, Lyra felt a chill of premonition. The Krelians weren't just trying to destroy the temple, they were trying to corrupt it, to use its power to awaken something that had been sealed away for good reason. "Marcus," she said as they reached the final doorway, "whatever we find in the inner sanctum, whatever the template really is, promise me that if it comes down to a choice between saving the galaxy and saving me, you'll choose the galaxy." Marcus stopped so suddenly she nearly collided with him. "Lyra Moon's hard," he said firmly, "I've spent months crossing hostile space to find you. I'm not about to lose you to cosmic martyrdom 5 minutes after we meet. We save the galaxy together, or we find a different galaxy that appreciates our combined talents." Behind them, the sound of Krelian siege breakers echoed through the temple's corridors. Ahead lay the inner sanctum and whatever truth the celestial template contained. And between them, a bond was forming that would either save countless worlds or doom them all. The inner sanctum defied every law of physics Marcus thought he understood. The chamber existed in a state of controlled impossibility, walls that curved through dimensions that shouldn't exist, a ceiling that opened onto star fields from a dozen different galaxies, and at the center, floating in a column of pure light, the celestial template itself. It wasn't a device or artifact as Marcus had expected, but something far more profound, a crystalline matrix that pulsed with the heartbeat of creation itself, containing within its faceted depths the fundamental patterns that held reality together. Just looking at it made his mind reel with visions of cosmic forces beyond human comprehension. "My God," he breathed. Sarah was right. This isn't just a weapon, it's the universe's source code. Lyra nodded, her violet eyes wide with awe and terror. The template contains the original patterns of creation, the blueprints the cosmic forces used to weave reality into existence. In the right hands, it can heal entire star systems, restore dead worlds, even repair the fabric of spacetime itself. And in the wrong hands? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "It becomes a tool for unmaking everything that exists," came a new voice from behind them. They spun to see a figure emerging from shadows that hadn't been there moments before, tall, armored in technology that seemed to absorb light, with eyes like burning coals and a presence that made the temple's walls recoil in horror. "Warlord Kazeth," Lyra whispered, recognition and dread warring in her voice. "But you were reported dead at the Battle of Nexus Prime." The Krelian leader's laugh was like grinding metal. "Death is merely another pattern to be unraveled, priestess. And I have learned much about unraveling from my new patron." As he spoke, the air around him began to distort, revealing glimpses of something vast and hungry lurking in the spaces between dimensions. Marcus stepped protectively in front of Lyra, his sword humming with harmonics that made the template resonate in response. Let me guess, ancient cosmic horror, feeds on reality itself, wants to use the template to turn the universe into its personal all-you-can-eat buffet. Your human's grasp of cosmic politics is refreshingly direct, Kazeth said to Lyra with mock appreciation. Yes, the Void Eternal has been patient for eons, waiting for the right circumstances to enter this reality. The template will provide the necessary gateway, and in return, I will be granted dominion over whatever remains. The chamber shook as Krelian forces finally breached the sanctum's outer defenses. Through the crystalline walls, Marcus could see elite death squads advancing with weapons designed specifically to corrupt mystical energies. But it was what followed them that made his blood run cold, creatures of living shadow that hurt to look at directly, beings that existed in the gaps between thoughts and fed on the destruction of ordered reality. The bonding, Lyra said urgently, grabbing Marcus's free hand. If we can complete the guardian bonding with the template, we might be able to seal the dimensional breach before my patron completes its emergence, Kazeth finished with satisfaction. But the bonding requires a willing sacrifice of individual existence. Are you prepared to lose yourselves in cosmic unity, little guardians? Marcus felt the weight of impossible choice pressing down on them. Through the temple's awareness, he could sense the truth of their situation. The bonding would indeed destroy their individual consciousness, merging them with the template's cosmic awareness. They would save the universe, but cease to exist as themselves. Well, he said with the kind of desperate humor that had gotten him through impossible situations before, I always wondered what cosmic enlightenment felt like. Though I was hoping it would involve less existential annihilation and more really good coffee. Lyra squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her face. Marcus, you don't understand. If we do this, we won't be us anymore. We'll be something else, guardians of cosmic order, but no longer human or Etherean. No longer ourselves. Marcus looked at her, really looked, seeing past the mystical priestess to the woman who had stood alone against impossible odds, who had been willing to die defending something greater than herself. In her eyes, he saw the reflection of his own choice, and knew with absolute certainty what he had to do. Lyra, he said softly, 3 months ago, I was just another mercenary with a ship and a death wish. But your sister's research, this temple, you've shown me something worth fighting for. Worth dying for. He smiled, and despite everything, it was genuine. Besides, if we're going to sacrifice our individual existence to save the universe, at least we're doing it together. That's got to count for something in the cosmic accounting department. The void entities were breaking through the final barriers now, their presence causing reality to fray at the edges. The template pulsed urgently, its light growing brighter as it sensed the approaching threat. Around them, the temple began to sing, a harmony of frequencies that spoke of creation and preservation, of love strong enough to transcend existence itself. Together, Lyra whispered, stepping forward with him toward the floating matrix. Together, Marcus agreed. They reached out simultaneously, their hands touching the template's surface in perfect synchronization. Power beyond description flowed through them, overwhelming their individual consciousness with the weight of cosmic responsibility. But in that moment of dissolution, they felt something unexpected, not the loss of self, but the expansion of it, their love and determination becoming part of something infinitely larger while somehow remaining essentially them. The template blazed with light that could be seen across galaxies, its power flowing out in waves that sealed dimensional rifts, banished shadow creatures back to the void between realities, and restored the proper patterns of existence wherever the Krelians had damaged them. Warlord Kazetha's scream of frustration was cut short as the cosmic forces ejected him and his remaining forces from the sanctum with prejudice that transcended physical laws. When the light faded, Marcus and Lyra stood hand in hand before the template, changed but somehow still themselves, guardians now, yes, but retaining their humanity and connection to each other. The temple around them had been transformed as well, no longer just a building but a living nexus of cosmic energy that would protect countless worlds from future threats. Well, Marcus said, examining his hands which now glowed faintly with starlight, this is either the best job promotion in galactic history, or we're about to have a very interesting conversation with the cosmic forces about our new responsibilities. Lyra laughed, the sound like silver bells in stellar wind, and for the first time in years, felt truly complete. Welcome to eternal guardianship, Marcus Stone. I hope you're ready for the universe's most important career change. Outside, the first dawn in decades broke over Zephyros as the planet's natural systems, restored by the template's power, began healing the scars left by war. And in the temple that had become their eternal home, two souls who had found each other across impossible odds settled into their new existence as protectors of everything that ever was or ever could be. The universe, it turned out, had an excellent sense of timing when it came to cosmic interventions. And sometimes, just sometimes, the right help arrived exactly when hope seemed lost, carried by a warrior whose greatest strength was knowing that some things were worth saving, no matter the cost.